Okay, can I just ask that you put your phones on silent if it's okay?
No, maybe
2-3 minutes. 12 means 12. It's okay, I'll wait 2 minutes. No, that's okay. Just let us know when you're good. Mr. Tafumane, how are you? I'm very well, thank you.
Sorry, I've been late.
No, it's okay. Get started. Members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to this MDC Alliance press conference. We're inching ever closer to a landmark election that will turn around the fortunes of our great nation and install a people's government. Under this new government, we will implement the people's agenda and ensure that the dignity of Zimbabweans is restored. The People's Movement, led by the People's President, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, have embarked on a mass mobilization program to build a broad alliance of citizens who will join hands to win Zimbabwe for change, as set out in our Zimbabwe Agenda 2021. We've made a firm commitment to run the biggest, most vibrant, and most energetic electoral campaign that this nation, indeed this region, and perhaps even the continent has ever seen. Our campaign will be driven by the young. Zimbabweans will take advantage of the youth bulge, and young people will use their collective power to speak authoritatively against violence, against dictatorship, and against corruption. We plan to ensure that 6 million Zimbabweans vote for change, for transformation, and for poverty eradication on election day in 2023. We will knock on doors. We will rally the urban masses. We will penetrate every village in our rural areas. We'll ensure that no Zimbabwean is left behind in the fight to win Zimbabwe for change. We are building the new, and we're doing this from the bottom up. We are working with the masses, the people, because we know that it's the people who are the wind behind our sails and who will propel us to victory. The people are sick and tired of the failure by Mr. Mnangagwa's regime to deliver on their 2018 election promises and to provide basic services to the citizens. Like most Zimbabweans, the MDC Alliance is asking, how far? How far with the promise that jobs will be created? How far with the promise that hospitals will be built? How far with the promise that education would be free and available for all? What's clear, ladies and gentlemen, is that Mr. Mnangagwa's regime has a deplorable record of broken promises and of failure. In 2023, the people will draw a line in the sand and say no more. Where is the new dispensation that was promised when innocent young people like Makomborero Harudzivishe are rotting in jail for demanding a better society and for holding the authorities to account? Where is the regime's fight against corruption when the likes of Obadiah Moyo, Priska Mfumira, and Kudakwashi Tagwire are walking free despite huge allegations of looting against them? Corruption is killing us, and the regime does not care. We must vote the looters out and ensure Zimbabwe's wealth and resources start to work for the many and not the few. As things stand today, 49% of Zimbabweans, that's almost 8 million, are facing extreme poverty, according to the World Bank. The rich are getting richer while the masses starve, get poorer, and are deprived of basic services. Traveling to and from work has become an extreme sport as the state has failed to provide an efficient, modern, and reliable public transport system. 2 days ago, the regime spokesperson, Mr. Nick Mangwana, admitted this failure. Now, what the people would have expected was a prompt solution to the crisis that addresses the challenges that people are facing. Instead, what the people were given were rickety wagons that are inadequate to meet demand and not befitting for our citizens who deserve dignity. Our Alternative Transport Secretary, Honorable Settlement Chiquinya, is on record denouncing this inhumane treatment of the people and setting out our alternative transport policy that will bring a modern, efficient, reliable transport system to Zimbabwe. And so, ladies and gentlemen, to the citizens, the call to action could not be clearer. Let's register to vote for change. I now defer proceedings to our Portfolio Secretary for Elections, Councillor Ian Makone, who will deliver our Election Watch address. Thank you.
So I can take it off. It's got enough distance, so my speed remains mine. Well, thank you very much for that. Just a quick apology. My colleague, Ellen Shiriedenga, who was going to field before me to deal with issues of the electoral reforms in general, has had a tire puncture. So she is feverishly trying to get here. If she does before we complete, I hope with your indulgence, we can give her an opportunity to go over that part of the briefing. Of course, the issues around electoral reforms, we already shared with you a while ago. But it's important that we keep reinforcing the reform agenda so that they remain at the forefront of yourselves, particularly as the fourth state. So let me just focus on the assumption that you have got enough insight into our electoral reforms agenda. But when we come to taking questions, we are happily prepared to go over the same ground if Ellen has not joined us by then. This is a meeting which is taking place after the lifting of the strict restrictions on COVID. And we have, as a party, complied with those restrictions, and for good reasons, and which is more than what some hypocrites have done, breaching their own regulations. Today, I wish to focus on two issues which form part of the reform agenda, and that is the accessing of national identity documents, as well as voter registration. They are key to everything else that we can do. If a citizen is not registered, they can't vote. And if they are not registered, we want to know why. And if we know why, there should be mitigation. Let me start off with the national identity documents. The relics of the district commissioners remain visible at our 63 district administration offices. Many of the buildings, even the benches and chairs, are from that gone by era. So that tells you how much or how little things have changed at that level of administration. The major difference is that the facilities now have to service more than 3 times as many people as they did during the colonial period. So you can then imagine what pressures that gives on individuals that battle to access identity documents. Without identity documents, they are not citizens, and they cannot access all the facilities that you and I take for granted. So where do the security guards and some of the clerks that process these identity documents get the courage to extort? Oh, there she is. Come through. They get the courage to extort money from a very impoverished public. You might ask. The authority must reside somewhere. The malpractice would not be so commonplace, and yet the Registrar General does nothing about it. You and I know it, but we all allow it to continue. So we've got to ask ourselves the questions: why does the Registrar General allow it to continue? Why do we allow it to continue? Because if we don't take a position on such malpractice, then we really are shooting ourselves in the foot. So what is the solution? Documentation of citizens should be decentralized. And decentralized to what level? That will make it easier for Zimbabweans to access this constitutionally enshrined facility. It is there in the Constitution. It is not a favor from the Registrar General, and yet, particularly young people, they are made to suffer. If we're talking about decentralization, you might ask, say, look, but what proof do we have? In our assessment, something in the region of 30% of the national population today has no ID. And it means, therefore, these people cannot access voter registration at all, and therefore will never be voters. They are not citizens. In fact, they don't exist in this country. Assuming the Registrar General was to institute the solution that we propose, namely that the service is decentralized to the administrative wards, then at the stroke of a pen, you got an additional 1,958 registry or centers where people can access IDs. But more than that, we propose that the Registrar General must be held to account, which means that periodically, and we're only asking for a monthly update of just how many people have accessed ID documents. After all, the Ministry of Health, because we're faced with this COVID pandemic, has kept the population well informed in terms of how many cases, whatever one might think about their penetration, but we get to know how many cases have been detected. We get to know how many people have died attributed to COVID. And we get to know how many people have been vaccinated, etc., etc. And this is information that is coming out daily. So the Registrar General cannot tell us that they cannot give us a statistic at the end of each month. I haven't even asked for it at the end of each week, but we could. At the end of each month, how many people have been issued with ID documents, which are a constitutional entitlement. The next issue, and I'm going to speak very briefly today, it has to deal with voter registration. It is a core competence in the election cycle that needs to be addressed. We estimate that out of a possible population of 13 million Zimbabweans, a good 27% of them are not registered. And these are mainly young people. Of that 27%, our calculation is that persons that were between the ages of 13 and 17 in 2018 will amount to 2 million people. Now, 2 million persons against the minuscule number of persons registered today is a shame. So by 2023, at the current pace, no more than 100,000 of these young people will have been registered. And what a sham election we're going to have. And we're making the point that the legitimacy of our election depends on the ability of ZEC to ensure that the constitutional provision on the registration of Zimbabweans as voters is complied with. What are some of the facts? They are at present registering, or they say they are prepared to register at 63 district centers. 63 district centers throughout the whole country. Now, when you go to the rural areas, some wards or some districts are more than 100 kilometers across or long. The expectation, therefore, is that that unemployed youth must borrow money or beg or steal money from mommy, board a bus or combi, go and register. What do they find when they get there? They're told we're working to a quota system. And if you are one of the first 20, you get registered. Otherwise, wait until tomorrow. Must he go back home and then come back the next day or the next day? They won't. So when they say that the existing facilities are underutilized, it's a clear admission that there's no system which is responsive to the reality on the ground. And these are the issues that we're highlighting. We're therefore proposing that all of us impose sufficient pressure on ZEC to do that which they are capable of doing by law, and we wonder why they're not doing it. In 2017, when BVR was introduced, we had enough registration kits for that blitz. Those kits are gathering dust, and it is a shame that we collectively allow that kind of thing to continue. Effectively, what ZEC is doing, and in a certain sense, it's the same thing with the Registrar General, is transferring the cost of registration or the cost of acquiring identity documents from the state to citizens. Why? The Constitution or no law at all in this country, it gives them that authority to tax Zimbabweans. They have no brief to do so. So we're saying rather it is important that ZEC decentralizes, just like we said, the RG's office decentralizes at the minimum to the ward. But we're going one step further and insisting that the teams that are deployed to the various ward centers must be incapacitated to move into the communities to designated population centers. Transfer that cost from citizens back to the state. That is the argument. I would not wish to finish off without making reference to delimitation. Delimitation depends on the numbers of people registered in any community, in any environment. So when 2 million youths get registered, irrespective of where they may be, that is the single largest factor in determining where the boundaries are going to be drawn up. So if they are not registered, it means that possibly the boundaries will be the same as they are or tweaked a little bit. I have no brief to volunteer what those boundaries should be because I haven't got the facts. But I dare say that when these 2 million people, the young plus the leftover citizens who are not registered as a July 2018, when that total number is registered, surely the complexion and the map, electoral map of this country will change significantly, and it will surprise not just me, but all of us. That is the nature of struggle that we're into. Because if change is going to come through the ballot box, then we better make sure that the facilities are in place to ensure that the citizens can talk. If we don't get them to get IDs, and if we don't get them to get registered, then the whole thing is a joke. Those that want legitimacy, they better listen and listen good, because legitimacy is conferred by the voters. We have 20, as I said, 30% of the population without IDs. They're at the margin of society. We have 27%, 27% of youths that are not registered. They are also at the margin of society. And I dare say, delimitation without this issue being addressed, or any election without these issues being addressed, is a sham, and it will remain illegitimate. I promise not to speak too long. I kept it as short as possible as I could, confining it to these two important competencies. And I promise that COVID or no COVID, the discussion that we're now having will continue more regularly, and we will bring in issue by issue so that we can discuss it, and through yourselves ensure that the population is well informed. I thank you.
Thank you very much. That was our Secretary for Elections, Councillor Ian Makone. Now, without further ado, I'm just going to open the floor up to members of the press to field questions arising from what Councillor Makone has raised, and as far as our election watch and the update of just how ready the state is to run the election, which is looming. So please, if you could kindly raise your hand, and having raised your hand, just identify yourself and your news house, and then we'll take your question. Thank you. Please confine yourselves to one question per journalist, at least for the first round. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Samuel Chakawere, I'm one of the two secretaries.
Thank you.
I just want to find out, in the wake of the problem that you said with regards to voter registration. What is the MDC Alliance doing to make sure that the first-time voter does register to vote?
It's precisely what we're talking about. We are doing our bit to register those young people, first-time voters, as you call them, under extremely difficult conditions. And I repeat what I said. It's not going to happen if we do not transfer the cost of registration from citizens to the state.
Okay.
I think you've heard that the tempo is rising, and we're urging the citizens, wherever possible, within these difficult constraints, to nevertheless get registered. So you're not just going to sit back. But we're saying the people that must be held to account are those two institutions, Registrar General and SEC.
Thank you very much, Councillor Makone. And just to add on to that, the MDC Alliance also has a grassroots campaign on voter registration going. So every single branch, every single polling station, we've got our community leaders who are going out and ensuring that, number one, first-time young voters, so those who are between the ages of 16 and 18 currently, are mobilized within their communities to register to go and vote, as well as first-time voters. So people who didn't vote in the last election, ensuring that they do so, and also incentivizing the process as well, making sure that community and party programs are centralized around the central message of voter registration. So that's just in addition to what Councillor Makone has raised. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. My name is Mosiah Mviringi, Chatable TV. My question comes in, maybe could I say 3 parts?
But we're going to just give you one so that we give everyone else a chance. Thank
Well,
you,
I know
Messiah.
I'm going to summarize it in
Okay.
this response.
Sure.
Yes. The first one is your insistence on young voters. It shows that you are very confident that all first-time voters and young voters will vote for the MDC. I don't know how you get convinced to that. And the second part is, how do you insist on going to an election when you are really saying that the playing field is not level, reforms are not in? You still insist on going on an election which you believe will be illegitimate. How is it so? The final part is, with the current struggles for a name going on in your party, are you still a political party or are you now a pressure group?
Okay. Ian, I'll let you go first, and then obviously I have lots to say.
In fact, I'll handle the first one to do with the young people. We're focusing on the young people. It's very simple. The Madalas like me are virtually mostly registered. So it's really the young people. When you study the demographics, it's clear that the bulk of your over 40s and above are already registered. So why do we waste our effort in people who are already registered? There may be a few, those that are not registered are genuinely those that are at the margin of citizenry. People that have never been issued with ideas, that we exploited in farms, that we exploit in our households because they got nowhere to cry. So yes, those will be included, but the bulk of the people that will be registered are young people. And it's not because we necessarily think they will vote for us. Of course, we'd love them to vote for us, but it is their entitlement.
Thank you. And just to add on to what Councillor Makone is saying, is the MDC Alliance, it's not as though we are going to do a voter registration campaign and then sit on our laurels. I indicated in my opening address that we're going to launch a massive political campaign for 2023 that's going to center on the daily struggles that Zimbabweans face. So for young people, it's going to be the unemployment crisis, the education crisis, the public health crisis, the transport crisis, the failure by Mr. Mnangagwa's regime to deliver on its promises of 2018, to uphold constitutional freedoms, and to deliver a Zimbabwe that young people can be proud of. Young people are not stupid. Young people know that the country is not working for them. The country is working voting for looters. As things stand, almost every young person is trying their best to leave the country to get a passport because there are no opportunities here. And our clear message for the young is register to vote. And then once you've registered to vote, the kind of change that we promise is change that actually services your needs. Coming to the second question that you raised around electoral reforms. Now, whatever happens, we are going to participate in the 2023 election. We've indicated aspects that need, to be fixed. For example, we need to demilitarize ZEC and its secretariat. We've indicated that the media space must be opened up. We've indicated that the constitutional imperatives around ensuring that the vote is verifiable, is credible, is free, and is fair, and that the electoral landscape is one that delivers on what Mr. Makoni describes as a legitimate election. That said, we have a plan in place to ensure that we overcome rigging, and the central aspect of that is to ensure that we overwhelm the system by registering to vote in our millions. Our target is 6 million votes in the next election, and we know that whatever they try and do with that number of votes, we will certainly, MDC Alliance doesn't have a name. The MDC Alliance has a name, and it's the MDC Alliance. That is the party that participated in the 2018 election under the presidential leadership of Nelson Chamisa, and it won the votes that it did. That there are shenanigans and machinations by the regime to try and steal that name is a separate issue, but it doesn't detract from the fact that we have a name, and that name is the MDC Alliance. We've all obviously said that, we are building the new. And we certainly are building the new, but from a factual perspective, the name is there. I've said time and again that the people know their leaders, the people know their structures. We are very strong on the ground. We continue to hold meetings amongst the people and the communities, and the people are very clear. They know who their leader is. And you'll recall with what transpired with the MDC Alliance is that the name, after the formation had been built by President Morgan Tsvangira, as it then was, the very last thing was to say, okay, so what should we call this formation? But the people were already clear that whatever little outfit that Madam Kupe at the time was running was not the legitimate People's Party. We say and we emphasize that whether the name changes or doesn't, people know who the People's Party is. And to call us a pressure group is to be completely divorced from the facts. We are a political party, and what we've emphasized is that we're going to take leadership in building a broad alliance of citizens to fight to win Zimbabwe for change. I hope that takes care of the name question once and for all. Thank you.
John Fasting, Channel Africa, SABC. My question is on how you were expressing your displeasure on what is happening at ZEC and the Registrar General. You were also saying just now that the youths are not stupid. Equally, I think ZANU-PF is also not stupid. I don't think just by merely saying from 2000 up to now that they need to register certain people, the people who are alienated, especially those from Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique, and so forth, they need to be registered and so forth. They've deliberately not done that. Do you think they're going to do it now that you've said that?
We are going to keep thumping the tables until they do it. That's for sure. Because if they don't do it, don't forget that they need legitimacy. If they don't do that, they remain illegitimate. And see where we are.
And you think they care that they're not legitimate?
I think they care. She just gave you the example of the hurried measures they've tried to implement because of the chaotic changes they've tried to introduce on transport, which would favor just a few people, the cronies. There was enough noise from all of us. That is what will change there. I'm quite sure of that.
And just to add to that, you must never underestimate the power of the people, especially when they come together. We saw what happened in Zambia. Edgar Lungu also said, well, I don't care, I'm definitely going to win. Tomorrow I'm going to hand power to myself. But what he didn't budget for is the overwhelming commitment by the people, number one, to have registered to vote, number two, to turn out on voting day, and most importantly, to protect and defend the vote. So it's a question of, in addition to ensuring that the 6 million people vote, we're putting in place measures to ensure that people protect and defend that vote and ensure that all polls are secure. And once that's done, like I said, there is evidence. There is state practice of what happened in Zambia, what happened in Malawi. So it's not a question of does Mr. Mnangagwa want to go or not. If the people speak and the people say no and the people vote and the people protect that vote, victory will be secure. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm Kudzabetula from Tegma TV. So you spoke about defending our votes. What is the strategy going into the next election in terms of having polling agents and polling stations throughout the elections? What is the strategy going into the next election?
Thank you very much. Well,
Yeah,
I'll
start. I'll start.
Ian, I've got a big mouth.
No, that's very good. You heard our spokes talking about grassroots organization. We are not sleeping. We will field agents at every single polling station throughout in the length and breadth of this country. There will be no loophole like they had in 2018. I assure you that.
And just to build on that, we rolled out a rural mobilization strategy that's being led by Honorable Happy Mochitsiba. And we are penetrating, like I said in my opening address, every single village. We're going out into the rural areas. So it's not as though we're concentrating on our typical strongholds, but even then, we are rolling out a fresh, energized campaign to energize the base there. But we're going to, on top of that, make sure that in the rural areas, we field competent candidates, our structures are strong, the people are energized, and the people have the right message that if you want a better life, sustainably, vote for the people's movement, for the people's leadership, because that's the best way to secure Zimbabwe for change. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
My colleague is right here.
Sure,
Yeah,
okay.
So please.
I'm just going to ask Ellen to briefly just go through the reforms quickly, and then we'll round up the presser. So if you've got a question, just hold on to it. We'll maybe field about 3 more after she's done. Thank you.
Did you manage to fix the puncture?
No.
Oh, so you see how committed the team is. I'm not going to ask you how she got here, but she got here. So thank you very much for coming. And what we've done is she spoke in general terms in terms of the political strategy, and I discussed, which was supposed to come after yours, the issues around IDs and voter registration. But I think they should all be in the context of the reforms agenda, which is really why you have started. So you press you to do it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Makwane. Good afternoon, everyone.
Just make sure you speak up so that we can hear you. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My task is not so difficult, although it's one of the key issues that we as the MDC Alliance have to grapple with and we have to fight for. I've been asked to talk about our electoral reforms agenda. As some of you might be aware, 2 years ago, we launched our reforms, electoral reforms document, which we codenamed PRICE, which refers to, which means Principles for Reliable, Inclusive, Credible Elections in Zimbabwe. Basically, in that document, we outlined 20 key issues that we feel for our election, for our 2023 election, and also even the by-elections that should be happening soon. Those 20 issues should be implemented and should be taken into account. As the MDC Alliance, we agree, and also with other stakeholders out there, that as a country, as Zimbabwe, we have one of the most beautiful constitution when compared to other countries when looking at electoral issues. But the challenge now is in terms of aligning our electoral laws to the constitution. And more so, we talk of, most of the issues are mainly administrative. Yes, there are also constitutional issues to be considered, but they are mainly administrative issues. But anyway, just in brief, we in that document we came up with 20 issues, and I'll just talk about some of them which I believe are key. First of all, there's the aspect of the supremacy of our constitution in Zimbabwe. Our constitution talks about timeless handing of our constitution conducting of elections, and also there's the issue that there are electoral laws in our constitution. For example, we talk about a free and fair election. We talk about the aspect of free and equitable media coverage for all political parties, and most importantly, we see a situation whereby we have some of the issues, some of the things that are happening in Zimbabwe, they are not incongruent with our constitution. For example, currently there is the COVID policy. Yes, we appreciate that we have a problem with COVID the world over, but then they came up with a COVID policy document after consulting stakeholders, and that document, which also entails the conducting of electoral activities on the part of our elections management body, and even the by-elections as well. But we see that we have a situation that ZEC says, okay, fine, now the COVID situation has been relaxed. And as its constitutional mandate, it goes out of its even to proclaim the dates of the by-elections. But then you see a situation whereby the health minister comes in and says, no, you can't convene the by-elections because we still have a COVID situation in the country. And same applies to the Minister of Justice. He also did the same in banning by-elections. So, we see a situation whereby a simple a statutory instrument at the end of the day is overriding our country's constitution. So those are some of the issues that we speak about in our prize document, to say we need to uphold the supremacy of our constitution. And also the aspect of the independence of our electoral body comes into play as well. The judiciary system, its independence as well. The security sector, we speak about the independence, because those are the key, stakeholders that have an influence on the outcome of the election. So those are some of the issues that are contained in our election document. And also, there's the aspect of voter registration. We say voter registration should be comprehensive. Each and every eligible Zimbabwean citizen above the age of 18 should be accorded the opportunity to register to vote. But I'm sure Councillor Makoni spoke well about that issue. And also in line with the voter registration, there's the aspect of the voters' roll. We need a verifiable and audited voters' roll, and that voters' roll should be availed on time for us to actually to scrutinize, to audit the voters' roll prior to any election. We have seen, for example, in the 2013 elections, in the 2008 elections, we were not given enough time to actually analyze the voters' roll. We saw a situation, for example, in Harare North, where you have quite about 30 people registered in one having one address as appearing as if they belong to the same household, which at the end of the day, presented a lot of questions with regards to the accurateness of our voters' roll. So we want our voters' roll to be audited prior to the 2023 election. And the code of conduct, our electoral body has come up with a code of conduct for polling agents and for other stakeholders. But then the challenge is that it's not enforceable. Unlike our Zambian counterparts, we have a situation whereby even the electoral management body in Zambia can actually, execute punitive measures on political parties that breach the code of conduct. But in Zimbabwe, the challenge is that they will tell you, no, we don't have enforcement powers. And for example, if you look at the media houses as well, we complain of unequitable media coverage. But that is also, not only is that in the constitution, but in the Electoral Act as well, which ZEC is supposed to ensure that, there's equitable coverage for everyone, but that is not happening. So ZEC will tell you, no, the media is beyond our mandate. So this is one area we say no, but as much as it's beyond your mandate, but you are responsible for all electoral processes that take place. So ZEC, what you need to do is liaise, for example, with the Media Commission, with the Voluntary Media Council, right? And sit down and come up with a way of regulating media houses in terms of coverage. And lastly, there's the aspect of results management system. As Zimbabwe, like I said, we have laws that are favorable. Our Electoral Act is, to some extent, it's clear on how results should be transmitted. But administratively, it's a different situation. For example, we talk about the fact that after the polling has been closed and counting done, results should be posted by the door of any polling station. But that was done mostly for council election results, for constituency MPs as well. But for the presidential, that was not done in most polling stations. And then now you get a situation whereby one ZEC commissioner would say, no, as ZEC, we cannot declare, presidential results at ward or constituency level. But people would have voted in their respective wards and in their respective constituencies. Surely posting results by the door is not, it's not announcing, it's not declaration, Yes, they can announce the results, but declaration is another story. So, and also at the same time, we realize that in 2018, where the situation whereby after the counting, after the collection of the results at constituency level, straight they went to the National Command Center, which in a way subverted the prescribed transmission of election results. So these are some of the administrative measures which we are saying as the MDC Alliance in our price document, we want to see those issues addressed. And prior to the 2023 election, like you indicated earlier, time is not our side. But as the MDC, we are pushing for that. We are not doing it alone. We are involving other stakeholders, particularly in the civic society, to help us ensure that those reforms are taken into account. And most importantly, the citizens. The citizens are not stupid. The citizens know what is right, and they will definitely fight for the reforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ms. Shiriebenga. So now if there are any remaining questions, I'm going to just take 3 more, then we're going to conclude. Yes, ma'am. Ian, can you Councillor.
What traction do you expect to get?
Sorry, ma'am, could you kindly speak up so we can hear you?
Councillor Makoni,
Yes.
what traction do you expect to gain in terms of electoral reforms that you have failed to gain in the last 3 years, if you are hoping to gain in the only remaining year, maybe in a few months? And how are you going to do this? Because you've been having these press conferences about election reforms, and until now nothing has happened. Thank you, sir.
You almost remind me of a certain gentleman that talks about Kuvukura.
Let's speak about what?
Kuvukura, a certain gentleman. We are going to Wukura until he hears us. That is the issue. In 2008, you will recall that there was a consensus around the Save Zimbabwe campaign. We did not get everything we wanted, but we had sufficient space created to enable a semblance of, I don't say free, I don't say fair, but a semblance of an election. You had our party spokes say, we will participate in the election, but the road to that election is not going to be smooth sailing, it's going to be bumpy. And the bumps are these demands for reforms. We are prepared, and we're going to prepare to participate in an election. But we are going to insist on 2 million youngsters being registered, on 30% of the population being made genuine and legitimate citizens. It is their right. And our job as politicians and as stakeholders is to fight for the voiceless. And these are the voiceless that must be ready to talk. Okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And just to say that, you know, as an alternative and a government in waiting, one of our prime duties is to hold the regime to account. There are many things that Mr. Mnangagwa's regime doesn't do, including upholding the constitution, upholding freedoms, upholding the right to freedom of assembly, upholding the right to free speech. But that will never silence us. We will keep speaking up, like Mr. Makone said, for the voiceless and for the constituency that we represent. If the constitution says something must be done, that thing must be done. Obviously, we've got mechanisms within the constitution that will enable us to push for some of these reforms, to mount pressure, to protest in terms of the constitution and ensure that what they're meant to do in terms of the constitution is done. What you can't do as an opposition that represents the people is sit back when people's rights are being violated, keep quiet and, you know, act defeated. We're going to fight, we're going to keep knocking, we're going to keep punching because we know that ultimately we will win Zimbabwe for change. Is there any burning question remaining? I'm just mindful of COVID. Yes, sir. I'm going to say the last one, just so that we can maintain some sort of social distancing. Taura yenyu mayisabaza. Ndizvozvo. Well, and 16 others, pane Chindevele. Anyway, proceed.
Kune chirongwa chiripo chekuti vari mumajeri nevanhu vanorarama nehurema vasivhotawo kana takatisabe service za 2018 mata-elections achacheka.
That's the right person.
Okay, so I'll give it to Ellen and then I'll just add in. Go ahead. So the prison vote, the disability vote, and then the diaspora vote. I think we could just cover those.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
okay. No problem.
Part of our price document, we speak about the right to vote. That's the bottom line. Whether you are in America, South Africa, wherever, as long as you are a Zimbabwean citizen, you have the right to vote. That's the basic principle. And that's what we are going with as the MDC Alliance. You look at other countries like Mozambique, for instance, they get their people registered. They come to Bulawayo getting their people registered to vote. So as Zimbabwe, what's stopping us? Those are some of the reform issues that we are pushing for. Even Zambia, just recently, almost 15,000 prisoners, they voted in this election after a court judgment. This is the kind of the push factor that we as the MDC Alliance, we are taking into account. And also looking at even the disabled as well. Those are people on voting day, they can't access the voting station. But let's do like what the South Africans are doing. My South Africans, the polling officers, they go door to door. We're not only registered to say, good, so and so is disabled, he can't go to the polling station. They go to his or her place and get that person to register, or that person, allow that person to vote on election day, the e-postal voting, whatever mechanism they employ. So this is what we are trying to push for as MDC Alliance. And most importantly, what we are pushing for, we are working with our disability council in our party to actually assist those that cannot see, that are blind, to say, okay, on election day, they need braille ballot papers. So this is one area that we are exploring for the constituents that you're talking about.
Thank you. Thank you very much, journalists, all our partners, all our news houses, all those who are tuned in online. Thank you very much for participating in this press conference. We are going to be giving regular updates. We're going to continue to engage the citizens, both online, offline, using traditional media, and most importantly, fortnightly. And especially grassroots on the grounds. We're going to be there, so we'll look out for us. We will come knocking on your door. Thank you very much. Thank you.